This is episode 128 of That Shakespeare Life. That Shakespeare Life is now available on our very own digital app. This app works on your tablet, phone, or TV and lets you explore the history of William Shakespeare with exclusive content, interviews, and documentaries not available anywhere else. You can cook, dance, and play your way through the life of William Shakespeare, all without any commercials. Find out more at cassidycash.com/experience and stay tuned after the episode for even more details.
Hi, I'm Professor Tracy Hill from Barnsley University in the UK. Another great method for studying the life of William Shakespeare includes listening to this. It's That Shakespeare Life with my friend Cassidy Cash.
Most of the war bows that were designed to drive a heavy arrow through plate armor were about 180 to 100 pounds in that range.
Welcome to That Shakespeare Life with Cassidy Cash. Cassidy believes that if you desire to successfully learn or perform Shakespeare's plays, then understanding the real life and history of William Shakespeare himself is a must. That Shakespeare Life is the podcast that helps you go beyond the curtain of some of Shakespeare's most iconic works and explore the world of early modern England as Shakespeare would have lived it, learning from the writers, historians, and performers who know it best. And now, here's Cassidy.
Following its prominent use in the decisive victory of the English against the French in the Battle of Agincourt, the English longbow was a stalwart image of English patriotism well into the 1590s. Having been a favorite weapon for the famous kings of England like Henry V, but also Edward III and Elizabeth I's father, Henry VIII, the English longbow was a tried and true military technology that was as uniquely deadly as it was uniquely English. While it may have fallen out of favor among England's young men by the time Shakespeare staged Henry V the play, the longbow nevertheless influenced the life of William Shakespeare. But what was this weapon? How was it used? And why was it effective against strong defenses like metal armor in battle? Here today to share with us how the English longbow is made, which materials are best for crafting the large and heavy bow, as well as how the English longbow became established as a permanent fixture in the history of England, is our guest, Alan Odinson. Alan Odinson is the owner-operator of Odinson Archery and has been an avid archery enthusiast most of his life. He is considered a master archer and is proficient in many forms of archery-related skills. These range from the use of traditional longbows to the use of more complex Asiatic style of archery. He is also an instructor in archery tactics and warfare simulation methodology. His website is at odinsonarchery.com. Hello, Alan. Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you doing? I'm glad to be here.
Was the English longbow an effective military weapon historically?
Oh, absolutely. I would say it was probably one of the weapons that really allowed the English empire to really grow. It offered a lot of things that you didn't find much before that as far as like range, effectiveness. It was really kind of a force multiplier. And you even see this just to kind of add a bit of effectiveness to it. You even saw this all used all the way up until, now it wasn't but just one guy using it, but you did see this used all the way up until World War II with a gentleman named Mad Jack Churchill, who was known for going into battle carrying a long sword as well as a long bow. He has the last official in-war kill with a longbow in battle. So pretty amazing. It also allowed for a lot of faster shooting. The French were known for using crossbows a lot, and that was one of the great things for the English longbowmen was they had a faster rate of fire, meaning they could send those arrows a long way very quickly. You also had things like specialty arrows. Specialty arrows was also a big thing. Not just things like we see in movies, we see the fire arrows coming in.
I was absolutely about to ask about the flaming arrows, yeah.
Flaming arrows are a thing. Now, they had a special head for those. There was a bird cage head that you could actually put a flame material in there to light it, and you usually use some sort of like an oil base that would keep it lit. But they also had things like rigging arrows. Now, the rigging arrows had a crescent, if you could picture a crescent moon head. So it had like a crescent head on it, and it could be fired at a ship's rigging and actually cut the rigging and drop the sails. So pretty amazing. They had a lot of very innovative things that made the English bow so effective.
So let's compare it then to modern archery and contextualize this, because I think with the exception of Mad Jack Churchill, most of us don't see these in regular use. So what are the differences between modern archery and what we think of as this traditional medieval longbow?
Well, one of the things I want to say real quick is you'll find a lot of times you'll have the English had a longbow, and they also used what would be termed as a war bow. And those were basically the main differences. There was the same bow for the most part, except the draw weight on the war bow was significantly heavier. So, but typically comparing, say, like a longbow to modern archery now has basically taken away all of the difficult things that go with learning archery.
Oh, I'm going to get so many angry letters from archers now.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing with me. I am absolutely a traditional archery lover because you have, with modern archery, we've got the compound bows that have the wheels on them, and basically what that has is like what you would refer to as a let-off. So what that means, short, easy, and sweet. If the bow says it's 80 pounds to draw it, when you pull it back to its full draw, you're actually only holding maybe about 20 to 15 pounds. So it's very easy to hold there. Whereas original longbows, if it says it's 80 pounds, it's 80 pounds when you pull it all the way back, and you got to hold that 80 pounds there.
With one hand.
With one hand, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you're holding it with that one arm, using your back and everything in that as well. But original longbows, no sights, so you had to learn to gauge the range. Bows these days are not as heavy of a draw weight because people don't run around wearing plate armor anymore, and we don't use them in battle. So that's one of the things I get a lot of times. People say, "What about armor today?" And I'm like, "No, you're not going to find a bow that's going to get through armor of today if it's stopping bullets." The arrows are all very different also. The arrows are very different. You have thicker arrows and heavier arrows in medieval archery.
So what was the pull in pounds for an English longbow? It sounds like you may have needed to be very strong to even wield this weapon.
Oh, absolutely. You would have, especially a lot of your war bows could get all the way up to a 200-pound draw, which is absolutely ridiculous. I'm a strong guy, and there's no way I could pull a 200-pound bow. Most of the war bows that were designed to drive a heavy arrow through plate armor were about 180 to 100 pounds in that range. Traditional longbows used for hunting purposes or unarmored things would be 60 to 80 pounds. It can be a pretty daunting task to draw such a thing back.
English historian Hugh Latimer described the longbow and learning to use one as a lifelong pursuit, which makes so much more sense when you think about exactly how strong you had to be to pull this thing back and fire anything. But he writes, quote, "In my time, my poor father was as diligent to teach me to shoot as to learn any other thing. And I think other men did their children. He taught me how to draw, how to lay my body in my bow, and not to draw with strength of arms as other actions do, but with the strength of the body." Now, you alluded to this earlier when you said that it wasn't just the arm holding back the 80 pounds, but also your back muscles. But Alan, I definitely assumed that shooting a longbow was something accomplished with the arms. Latimer is saying that there's a specific skill to learning how to use your body versus just your arms. What does he mean by this, lay my body into the bow, when he's shooting the English longbow?
What you would find is with a lot of people do think it tends to be arm and shoulder. In reality, it's your back that does most of the pulling. If you think about it, you've obviously got much larger muscle structure in your back. So you would find that, especially those insanely heavy bows, you would see these guys, if you ever see video of a guy shooting a traditional English longbow or a war bow, the really heavy ones, is he'll actually just lean his whole body into it and then draw his whole body back to make it a full body motion. So it's his hips, his core, his feet are driving into the ground, and he draws back with the power of his entire back muscle in that. Now, obviously, you did have to be very strong on this, and you would find, I think it was the Queen Mary, the ship they found with all of the English longbows that actually sank. They found some skeletons on there that were actually of English longbowmen. And when they checked their body structure had even changed, and their spines were slightly deformed from all of the years of shooting.
Wow. We think of a bow and arrow set to be something you hold in your hands. Was the English longbow, what size was it in terms of being able to shoot it?
Usually it's about 6 foot. I actually have an English longbow, and they're usually about 6 foot. I'm right at 6 foot, and mine's slightly taller than I am.
So this is not a small thing. This is a massive weapon.
Very big. I would say a nice representation of that would be in the latest Robin Hood movie they had. They made reference to the bow being too big to wield in tight spaces, and it absolutely was an open warfare type of weapon.
When they went to shoot it, did they have to put it on the ground to use it, or did you have to be taller than 6 feet to be a longbowman?
Not necessarily. You would see a lot of archers. You can find video of this, seeing people do this, is they will actually hold the bow kind of sideways to put the arrow on there. And then when they draw, as they're leaning back and drawing, they'll actually rotate the bow straight up and down, so it's in that more vertical position. So, and plus also a lot of the shots were volleying shots. So you had a group of archers launching a bunch of arrows up into the air, so you could get away with the bow being slightly longer than you were.
Now, you talked earlier about arrows today not being able to pierce through armor or something like that. How were the English longbowmen's arrows in the 16th century different from what we have now? What made them able to pierce metal armor? Was it the strength of the bow that was shooting it, or was the arrow actually made of something else?
It's a combination of the two, really. You need a heavy bow to send a heavy arrow at a distance. And when I say heavy arrow, we're talking arrows that had a shaft, so that's the actual wooden part of the arrow that was about a 1/2 inch thick. So you have little miniature javelins flying through the air with needlepoint. Well, they have needlepoint bodkins, which is basically just a long, pointy spear tip. A lot of people think that they used broadheads and things, but broadheads actually weren't used in battle. It was usually needlepoint spear tips that would go through. Now, like today, most arrows, we judge arrows in weights and grains. Most of the time you would have arrows weighing in nowadays around 600 grains. It was nothing to have an arrow well over 1,000 grains then, to 1,200 grains, just ridiculously heavy arrow.
Now, for those of us that are not familiar with archery terms, what does it mean for something to be 600 grains? What is a grain?
It's basically just the general weight. It's a unit of weight for the arrow itself. It's just the weight of the arrow. So I'll give you an example. A basic hunting arrow is probably going to be around 500 to 600 grains, as opposed to something that I need to send through a plate armor. I'm actually going to use a heavier grain. So what I want is a heavy arrow. Modern archery uses a lighter arrow. A heavier arrow means it has more mass. Even if it's traveling slower, when it hits, it's going to use that weight to actually drive it the rest of the way through.
This is just a massively fierce weapon from start to finish in terms of I had no idea about the needlepoint spear tips, because in my mind I was doing, I'm going to throw it back to the 90s here with the Kevin Costner Robin Hood bow but he used a broad tip in that film. And I didn't think about needlepoint spear tips. I can't imagine. I'd be terrified of the English army carrying this thing. With these weapons being so large and so heavy, were they made by just one person, or did this take a team of craftsmen to create?
Typically, you could get this done with a single bowyer. A bowyer, obviously, a person that makes bows. You could get a single person could do this. Basically, what you're looking at is, it would take a couple years. You have to dry the wood out, which there's a lot of different woods you could use. You have to dry the wood out, and that could usually take 1 to 2 years to get it good and dry where you need it. Then you slowly work it down and shape it. They had what they would call a draw knife, which would basically use to just scrape the wood down, and you would scrape it down to the size you need it. It could take, a few years. It could take up to 4 years sometimes. And obviously having a team of people building a bunch of these at once would probably be the way to go.
What kind of wood was used for the longbow?
A variety of different woods could be used. The main one they like to use was the wood yew, Y-E-W. They would use yew. They would use ash. They would use elm. And typically what you'd find, something that a lot of people miss out on too, is when you have bows with such a heavy weight, you actually don't want to have the string sitting on wooden ends, because obviously that string rubs and it could end up rubbing and basically creating like a saw motion on the ends. So they would actually take horn and use horn on the ends of the sias, which that's the name for the ends on the sias. They would use horn to actually solidify that. Now, there were some accounts of people making bows, medieval bows in the English. The English would use like a horn composite, and that's basically just kind of a primitive lamination of wood. That's kind of the same, kind of a similar thing you would see with like the Mongolians.
So how long did it take to learn how to use this weapon? I mean, Hugh Latimer's talking, and you had to spend your whole life learning how to do this. Were young kids basically raised up to go into the military as bowmen, or how did people develop this kind of strength? This isn't something the average person's going to just be born with, I don't think.
It was really a big part of English culture. You had most kids were taught to use a long bow. Now, only specific ones were taught to the level of using a war bow. So everyone had a proficient level of skill. It was almost kind of, if you compare it to the United States, it's almost comparable to children learning to shoot guns when they're younger. It's kind of just a part of that culture. And there was a lot to learn. You had to learn, obviously, building up the strength. And, when I teach kids, I start them with something light and they slowly move up to something heavier. And you had to learn angles. You had to learn angles so you could learn to volley that arrow and get it to land where it's at. You had to learn precision shooting, being able to make a precise shot, because armor does a very good job at what it's designed to do. So being able to get hit in the right spot on that armor was also important. They had to also learn instinctive aim, plus just general tactics. And there was a lot that went into it when they went to the military level, but you would find a long bow in every home in medieval Europe.
Well, there's obviously a lot to learn about the English longbow, how to shoot them, and how they were made. In addition to visiting Odinson Archery, which we will link to in the show notes for today's episode, what are some books and resources you can recommend for people that want to learn more about the English longbow?
Some of my favorite ones, I would say two of my favorite ones were written by the same gentleman, Hugh Soar. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Soar. It's The Crooked Stick, and that's the history of the English longbow. And he also has another one called The Secrets of the English Warbow, which is very good book on war archery. For just general shooting of the bow, the traditional shooting, I would recommend Become the Arrow by the legendary Byron Ferguson. And for building bows, I would go with Traditional Bowler's Handbook by Clay Hayes. Very good books, all recommended.
Those are excellent resources. We'll be sure to link to those in the show notes for today's episode. So make sure you go there to find out more. Now, Alan, we ask everyone this next question here at That Shakespeare Life, and that's, what's the one book you would take with you on a deserted island? My friends in England tell me I'm supposed to allow you the complete works of Shakespeare and a copy of the Bible. So your choice would be in addition to those.
Well, that's a pretty good selection. Just having the complete works of Shakespeare is pretty good. See, me being the practical person, I would want to cheat and have a book from my buddy Kevin Estella, The 101 Skills You Need to Survive in the Woods. But if I'm thinking from a mental standpoint, for me, just enjoyable reading, I would probably go with Marcus Aurelius's Meditations.
Oh, that's a good choice. You'd be well set up on your deserted island for sure. So what's next for you? What are you working on now that you're excited about?
For me, I've been running Odinson Archery for many years now, and I'm always working on new designs for bows, crossbows, Chinese repeating crossbows, all kind of wild things like that. I've recently started making knives, so I'm starting to make knives now with Odinson Blade Works. I'm making knives and hatchets and tomahawks and all that sort of thing, and I'm just going to continue to spread my joy and passion for traditional archery and teaching others about the wonderful world of archery.
That's exciting. Tell us a little bit about where Odinson Archery is located for people that might want to come and check out what you have.
Odinson Archery, you can find us online. That's the best way to find me. Very, very smallest of small businesses. That's the best way to find me. You can also find me online at Facebook and places like that. But Odinson Archery is located in the deep south of Tuberville, South Carolina, a small town. If you blink, you'll drive right past it.
Thank you so much, Alan, for being here and talking us through the history of the English longbow. This has been a fun conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed being here.
Find links to Odinson archery, examples of real English longbows, and a video where you can see the full body motion of launching an arrow from a longbow, all packed into the show notes for today's episode. Find all of these resources and more at CassidyCash.com/episode 128. That's CassidyCash.com/EP128. How would you like to see the video of this week's interview? You can watch this interview as well as other exclusive interviews not available anywhere else right inside That Shakespeare Life app. That's right! That Shakespeare Life is now streaming on our very own digital app. We are very excited to make this available, and not only can you stream podcast episodes anywhere you go, but the app contains exclusive content like activities, games, documentary shorts, expert interviews, and animated plays, all free from ads and available anywhere you might be. You can learn Shakespeare's history from the experts who know him best while you're in the carpool line, cooking dinner, or even while you're working out. Take Shakespeare history with you wherever you go, all without any commercials. Download the app now at CassidyCash.com/experience. That's CassidyCash.com/experience. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to That Shakespeare Life. As always, the best conversations happen after the episode over at CassidyCash.com. Become a part of a vibrant Shakespeare conversation by adding your voice over at the website. Until next time, remember, when you want to know William Shakespeare, you have to go behind the curtain and into That Shakespeare Life.